Hey everyone, welcome to Smart Training 365. My guest today is a world champion free diver. He recently broke the world record by diving 150 meters, which is 492 feet in 3 minutes and 23 seconds. This is going to be a very interesting conversation. We will be talking about breathing techniques, resistance training, also cardiovascular health and other activities. So make sure to stick around till the end of the video. Walid, welcome. We're honored to have you here.
Thank you. Hey, Mario, how are you doing?
Very good.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for the invitation. Thank
My
you.
pleasure. Congratulations again on your achievement. It was fantastic.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
How was life? Did it change?
Well, in a sense, yeah. I mean, I've been chasing world records. I mean, it's like any freediver's dream, right? Or any athletes, I guess. So I've been chasing this for so many years now, and I really feel satisfied and happy with it. So yeah, it feels great.
Nice. Walid, can you give us an idea about yourself?
Well, I'm a professional freediver, so basically I hold my breath underwater and go as deep as possible in the ocean. Well, freediving is kind of a new sport. It's growing very fast in the last years, and it's about, as I said before, holding your breath and covering a certain distance. In this case, vertically down there. I mean, in the ocean, and then making it back to the surface. There are several disciplines in the sport. You have constant weight, variable weight. So basically, variable weight, like the world record I achieved 2 weeks ago, is about going in an assisted way down there and then um, leave the sled or the weight we're carrying down there and then make it back to the surface on by your own means. So basically, swimming or pulling on the rope. And then you have other disciplines where you have to swim down and up with a monofin or bifins or without any fin at all, so just breaststroke basically, or using the rope and pulling on the rope to go back to the surface.
All right.
There are other disciplines also that are practiced in pool, so confined waters, so basically holding your breath on the surface as long as you can. So that's called static apnea, static breath hold basically, and dynamic apnea, which consists in covering the longest distance underwater, swimming horizontally. So I personally prefer depth disciplines, in the ocean, and that's what I do. That's what I've been doing for the last 15 years or so.
To give our viewers a better idea, let's go back to your achievement a few days ago, and maybe you comment along so we understand better what you do.
Sure.
Okay.
So so this is a record, a variable weight record, as I was explaining before, that I did in Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt, on in the Red Sea. This is an amazing place for this kind of deep diving. So here we can see me. I just started the descent. This is the first phase of the dive, the first part of the dive. So basically going down. You see, we follow a vertical line
Right.
from the surface down to 150 meters. Sorry, I use meters rather than feet. I'm more used to them. And
492 feet.
that's it. It looks bigger in feet.
Yeah.
So this is the sled. This is the device I'm using. But it's basically a weight, a heavy weight. It's around 30 kilos or so. And I'm sitting on it. I'm grabbing it. It goes very, very fast. Maybe I think you can tell from you can see the
Yes.
water on my face and stuff. So the average speed is 2 meters and a half per second, roughly. But you could see on the watch, on the gauge, the depth and the time. So it's very, very fast. I'm already at 112 meters or so. And I also have a brake in case of anything wrong happening, so I can immediately stop the device and get back to the surface. So here I just reached the bottom. So the hardest thing here is the pressure itself. So bear in mind that I have 150 meters of water, column of water of 150 meters above myself, above my body. And it's a lot of pressure on the lungs, on the whole body, on the ears. So we have to equalize the ears very quick. We have several techniques to adapt to this pressure rather than fighting the pressure. So it's also very mental process.
Right. We're going to talk about that in details later. It's important.
Yep. And then this is the view from the first safety's camera. He's using a scooter to go down to 60 meters to meet me on the ascent. So this guy will follow me during the last meters of the ascent, and he's in charge of reacting if anything wrong happens to me. So the worst thing that could happen here is loss of consciousness due to hypoxia, so low levels of oxygen. And this is called a blackout, shallow water blackout. So in this case, these guys are very, very well trained, and they know exactly what they have to do in case of this accident happens. I already done this depth several times during the trainings before, so that I was sure that I could make the dive. So here are the last meters. These are the most critical. This is the most critical part of the ascent. This is because you're on you're reaching the end of your breath hold, so you might be closer to hypoxic state. And narcosis also is something very present and very strong in this kind of dive. So basically, it's some kind of you feel a bit out of this world because of the high level of nitrogen and the pressure involved. So this is the surfacing. So as soon as we reach the surface, we have to do what we call a surface protocol. So we have to take off our goggles or whatever we have on our face, make this signal and say, I'm okay in this order, 1, 2, 3, in less than 15 seconds. And this is compulsory, so we can validate the record. If you're not able to do these simple steps, then the judges won't accept the record and would disqualify, and all the time we've been training and all that stuff won't be taken into account. So here I did the okay sign, and the judges actually have to wait. This is why we don't have any cheering or greeting until now, and because they need to check that I'm completely fine and okay. Safety for this kind of sport, for this sport in particular, is very, very, very important, and we are. I mean, this is our number one priority.
That was fantastic, amazing. Not many people achieved that. So you're going also for another record, which is in a different discipline, you said?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it's still under. I mean, I'm still working on it, and I would say kind of a secret. It's okay.
Right,
we can talk about it, of course. I'm obviously interested in the other disciplines of freediving. So we have free immersion. Free immersion is, as explained before, pulling on the rope to go up and down, and constant weight, which is swimming either with fins or without fins during the whole dive. So these are the main 3 or 4 depth disciplines. And yeah, I'm training for it, and I'm working on it.
Which one is the hardest for you?
It's hard to tell because every freediving discipline has its own difficulties, and that's what makes the sport so interesting. For instance, variable weight that I was doing might be less physically demanding than constant weight because you have some kind of help to go down, but the depth, the extreme depth that we reach make it harder on the body, for instance, to get used to that pressure. So the pressure on the lungs, dealing with narcosis, things that are directly related to pressure and depth itself. This kind of difficulty is, for instance, not present in constant weight dives. Constant weight dives are a bit more physical. Maybe variable weight is also more mental than constant weight. So you see, there are different difficulties. But I would say, well, just as a quick answer, probably constant weight, no fins, is probably the most challenging, especially on a physical aspect, because you have to go down and up breaststroke. So it's only the ocean and your body, and the ocean. So it's extremely demanding and taxing on the body.
Interesting. When did you start freediving professionally?
I started some 15 years ago, 16 years ago, professionally. So training, let's say seriously. But the fact is, I started it without even knowing when I was a kid on the shores of the Mediterranean, back in Tunisia when I was a kid. I grew up basically very close to the sea, to the ocean, and I would spend hours at sea every day for 2 or 3 months, for the summertime, during the summertime. And this is how this great passion about the ocean grew, and I developed it when I was a kid. And then spearfishing, I started spearfishing when I was a bit older, maybe around 13 years old or so. But it was only a hobby back then, and I didn't even know about the sport of freediving. I mean, I watched that movie, Big Blue, Grand Bleu.
Yeah.
But it's a fantastic movie talking about that rivalry between a French and Italian freedivers. It's basically the Top Gun of freediving. So I really got hooked. I mean, I'm very interested by the sport, but I didn't know where or how to train it until I started traveling around the world. And for some reason, I discovered it in South America, in Colombia, quite far away from home. And then I decided to stay there and train. I also had to travel around the world, many other different locations, just looking for the best spot, the perfect spot for freediving, because we have few places in the world where you can find the right conditions for the sport. So I was trying to train correctly and find the best way to reach my goals.
Nice. Walid, can anyone become a free diver, or it requires existing, let's say, qualities that you will work on later?
No, not at all. I would say anybody can be a free diver. Absolutely anybody. And this is the very interesting thing about the sport. Like in my case, I of course obviously had a strong contact and link with the ocean since I was a kid, from a very young age. But I know a lot of fellow freedivers who are completely, from maybe living in locked up countries without any access to the landlocked, countries without any access to the ocean. And it doesn't have to do with any kind of special skill or some people might think we are some kind of Aquaman who have big lungs or very big mental strength, and this is something I simply developed through years and years of practice and training. So we actually teach freediving. I mean, there are a lot of freediving schools all around the world. And a lot of people now learn freediving. It's exactly basically like a scuba diving course. It goes the same with 3 levels, from beginner to advanced, and at least to learn the basics, And then when you want to be professional, well, that's up to you. And obviously, it requires a lot more of practice and work.
What are the fundamentals of freediving?
The fundamentals, that's very important. I would say 2 things. Breathing, so correct breathing, and relaxation. I always stress a lot this to my students, because basically, if you master those 2 aspects, you are able to dive very, very deep on breath hold, even without having any kind of special physical condition or strength or any other skill. I mean, because I saw it around me and with other fellow freedivers and students. I had a lot of students. I taught a lot of people, and I know that simply by knowing how to breathe correctly, very, very simple techniques that allow you to teach and improve your technique, of breathing, and relaxing so you can save oxygen and energy, then you'll be able to easily go to 30, 40, 50, and even I would say up to 90 meters or more without any kind of special training. Of course, after some time, right? It requires
Yes.
some time to adapt the lungs and adapt the body and be mentally ready for the depth, for depth. Yeah. And then of course after for extreme depths, like I would say after 100 meters or so, then maybe it requires some kind of specific, very specific different training.
Right. Obviously, everything is happening, while you're holding your breath. So let's talk a little bit about that. Before you started, how long were you able to hold your breath?
I would say like anybody. I didn't have any kind of, well, I can't remember very well. I remember that when being a kid, I liked to play around and hold my breath like any kid. I mean, I think we all did that. And
Yeah.
I really enjoyed going to the ocean and trying to, when I was spearfishing, it wasn't for the sake of, killing an animal or fishing. It was just the pleasure of being underwater and staying
The
as long as
challenge.
possible and going as deep as possible. I mean, I wasn't going further than 10 meters probably, but I really enjoyed that. So
Was it
yeah,
more than 3 minutes, 2 minutes,
yeah,
around that
maybe
more?
like an average person, probably 1:30 to 2 minutes. And then I remember when I first time I arrived to Colombia and I started training in the pool. There was a deep pool, 5 meters deep pool, where I used to go and swim down there. And one day there was a funny game they have there in Colombia that is called underwater rugby. So it's basically like rugby played underwater. I don't know if you heard about the sport. It's a lot of fun. So it's all done on breath hold. So you have to wear a mask and short fins and a short snorkel, and then you basically have to fight for the ball. It's a heavy ball filled with salty water,
Mhm.
and it's very physical. It's very it's quite rough actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, very. And I remember one day I was swimming in that pool, and one of the guys from the team, from the underwater rugby team, he asked me, "Hey, you want to play with us? It's we've been seeing that you were swimming down there underwater, and it seems you have a good breath hold. So come and join us." So I just that's how I started. And after the game, I didn't understand anything. I was new to the sport, and the same guy told me, "Okay, maybe you're a bit too slow for this kind of fast, game and stuff. But you actually, we noticed you have a very good breath hold. You could hold your breath longer than any one of these guys, and maybe you should consider freediving. Freediving, breath hold diving, is about just holding your breath and going underwater. So maybe, and that's how it started actually.
Hmm. That's how many years ago?
Well, that was 16 years ago.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, Walid, what did you do exactly to work on holding your breath longer?
Well, at first it wasn't easy because back then we have very little access to information. There was no Facebook, no very little. Well, I think no social media, and everything was on the net. I tried to Google everything and look for people, of course, who could guide me and I could learn from. So that's how I met a very close friend, Frank Burnett. He's also a lung doctor, and we still talk a lot about physiology, and because that's the interesting thing about the sport. It involves a lot of physiology and a lot of science behind it, and I think that's how I could also apply my background in engineering and science, because that's what I studied when I was at school and then at university. So
Mm.
basically, a big part of my training right now is spent reading, online and medical stuff and scientific papers, because it's a new sport and there's a lot of physiology involved, and we don't exactly know what's happening to the human body. I mean, we're all discovering it. So basically, that's how I started reading a lot, and then first time I had the opportunity to travel to San Andres Island, where it's a very beautiful island in the middle of the Caribbean where we have very, very nice conditions for deep freediving. And I started also holding my breath and doing what we call static apnea, which is just holding your breath on the surface and seeing how long you could go. And at first it wasn't very, very long, maybe 3 to 4 minutes. And then I started holding my breath longer and longer. And at the end, I reached more than 7 minutes. I was very happy with it.
Very nice. So to practice your breathing, was it something that you had to do every day or like every other day? How did you do it?
Well, it depends. So if you were talking about pool, holding your breath in a pool, say either static, so just static breath hold, or dynamic breath hold, so while swimming, you could easily do it every day without any issue. But when we start going deep, so deep freediving, and when we start going to some serious depths, and this is obviously very relative, it depends on the freediver, then we need a lot of rest too. And the human body is not able to handle the stress, and all that effort. It's not about the physical effort. It's metabolic stress on the body, on the lungs, on the compression of the
systemic
lungs, and all
stress.
That's right. It's a weird it's a very strange kind of fatigue that we feel. I could give you an example. Like I could hold my breath, and I train a lot in the pool too, and I could do a decent distance underwater. And then right after, I would obviously feel a bit tired, but then 15 minutes after, I would be totally recovered. It's like running or swimming or whatever. But diving deep in the ocean, even though it's only maybe 3 to 4 minutes dive, afterward it will feel completely exhausted and fatigued. So I would need several days to recover from it.
Several days,
yeah. I would give you an example. Before that world record attempt, I had to rest for 5 days. So that's what makes the preparation for this kind of dive so difficult mentally, because we have to have a very long time. So for instance, for this record, it took me 4 months specifically for this record, so dedicated to training in Sharm, because after one dive, I might need at least 3 to 4 days off at home.
recovery.
So this makes the preparation very, very long. Okay.
Do you practice your breathing on an empty stomach, or like it doesn't matter?
Yeah, it does matter. It's much better to do it, and it has actually to be done on an empty stomach. I usually do it in the early morning, right before having my breakfast.
For how long?
Sometimes at night before dinner. How long it takes me?
How long is the practice when you wake up?
Well, right after I wake up, and then the practice itself might take 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself an endurance athlete?
That's a very good question, and it's hard to answer because there are different opinions about that and a lot of controversy, because some people would compare freediving to an endurance sport. Some others prefer to classify it as an anaerobic sport. In my opinion, it's a mix of both, I think. And it's a very complex sport. It's very hard to train correctly because we have the physical training. It could be aerobic and anaerobic. Then we have the pool training. Then we have the mental training. Then we have breathing. And then we have the depth specific training. So it's a lot of things to take into consideration. Yeah. And some people, I know a lot of athletes use other endurance sport like running or long distance swimming in order to prepare for freediving, at least during the first part of the season, let's say. So doing what we call the base training. But some others don't do it at all and actually skip that and prefer to work out in the gym like I do. I prefer to do that. So I have very little aerobic training. My almost all of my training is anaerobic, so mostly in the gym, and then even in the pool, it's short distance and sprints and this kind of training. But again, it depends on every athlete, and this is the interesting thing about this sport. It's so different. Every person has their own methodology, and it could be very different, and even sometimes opposite ways.
Right,
You know?
right. Interesting. Usually, endurance athletes have like the highest CO2 tolerance and storage as compared to like sprinters. So, can you minimize like your CO2 production deliberately?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we call a hypercapnic training. We do that a lot, and we basically, just to make it simple, we have two kind of big categories, say, of training in freediving, especially in the pool. So we have hypoxic training, so where you have to get used to hypoxia, so basically low levels of oxygen, and hypercapnic training, where you get used to high levels of CO2. Again, there's a lot of controversy and a lot of different opinions, but the big consensus here, and I do agree too, is to focus on hypercapnic training, so high levels of CO2. The reason behind it is because, just to make it simple, is because we need CO2, we as freedivers, in order to trigger some complex mechanisms related to the diving reflex. So it's exactly the same reflex that
fight or flight.
I would say it's a bit different. It's exactly the same adaptation cetaceans have, like dolphins and whales. So basically, when they go deep down there, their heart beat will go down. They will experience bradycardia, and things like the blood shift also will happen. So basically, the blood will stop circulating in the extremities and will fill that the space between the lungs and the pleura, and that will protect the lungs from collapsing. There are many different adaptations that happen under those circumstances, and one of the triggers of these adaptations is CO2. So when the body feels that there's a high level of CO2 in the body, well, then it starts creating those adaptations in order to protect itself. It seems to have its origins from millions of years ago when we were part of the ocean, and we have those protective reflexes and mechanisms against maybe some kind of predators. So once you get your head in below the surface of water, then you would immediately adapt to this, and that will save you some time. And before
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and it seems, well, we freedivers, basically we base our trainings on these mechanisms, these adaptations, and that's the reason why we need a high level of CO2 in the body, so we can conserve oxygen also, because our body is very intelligent. So once it feels that, it senses that CO2 is very high, then it understands that something's going. It will start saving oxygen. Okay, so we go into O2 conservation mode, and this is what we freedivers are looking for all the time. If it wasn't for this O2 conservation mode, then we wouldn't be able to, hold our breath for 7 or 8 minutes or go 100 meters down below the surface.
How you deal with CO2 tolerance, like mental CO2 tolerance?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, this is the hardest thing actually about freediving trainings, mainly in the pool, because that's where we train CO2 tolerance, mainly in the pool, and we do it sometimes also during dry trainings, like what we call apnea walks. So basically, we hold our breath and walk. It's not very funny, but it's apparently very effective. Or even squats or some specific gym workouts on breath hold. Okay, and you said the mental behind it. Yeah, well,
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
how
this
you
is
improve your mental CO2 tolerance.
well very gradually. So basically, I will give you an example. There's
Yeah.
a simple exercise we do in the pool. We usually take a semi-Olympic or Olympic pool, okay, and we swim X number of laps
Hmm.
with very short recovery in between the laps. Okay, so it's a short distance that we can cover without going into hypoxia. So we never reach a low level of oxygen, but the CO2 level will increase after every lap, of course, and the recovery between the laps is so short that we don't have the time to get rid of that CO2. So basically, we work out under quite a high level of CO2, and we get used to it. It of course has to be done very, very gradually, because if it's too hard, then it will be overwhelming, and if the sensation is so ugly and so uncomfortable, you will start having contractions.
Hmm.
You will feel contractions here and in the diaphragm, and you will feel like you're on the edge to
Die.
drown, actually. So this is an awful feeling. So in order to avoid that, we do it very, very gradually, and the body gets used to it, and the mind, specifically the mind and chemoreceptors we have in our brain. Actually, the brain works this way. You probably already know that, but we always, our brain always and our body always try to protect us. Okay, so the main priority here is security. That's what we are looking for. And the reason why we feel all those bad feelings when we are holding our breath and doing those laps underwater is because the body feels that it's in danger, right? So by understanding the situation and doing some kind of like a mental work, the mental process,
Yes.
where you convince your brain that everything is okay, and you have to analyze those feelings in a very detailed way, and understand them, and understand that your body is sending you signals, and that those signals and the situation is totally fine and under control, and you know that it's not going against your security, then it will start to change a little bit. And then by repeating this, so repetition also is a key, then eventually it will become more comfortable.
Hmm. So you
I don't know
said
if it
there
makes
are.
sense.
No, I understand what you're saying. Um, so when you said some of the things are controversial, are you saying that sometimes you can use blackouts as a training, meaning like reliving that moment will help you later on with different challenges?
No, not at all. Sorry, that was not my point, because if we reach the point of blackout, it's actually not beneficial at all, and it's actually
Okay.
quite the opposite. Because the interesting thing about blacking out, is it's also a mechanism of conservation, and it's also a mechanism that is used by our body in order to protect us. So basically, the body, once it feels that it's going to very close to hypoxia, so very low levels of oxygen, then it will, of course, try to protect us by any means. And the first way to do so is to shut off the organ that consumes the biggest amount of energy in the body, which is the brain. The brain consumes around 20% or so of the oxygen reserves, so stores. So once it's closed and shut off, then we can manage to save some minutes, some very precious minutes. So actually, the person who blacks out is not is unconscious and won't recover until it's out of danger. So once it feels that it's out of the water, then it will recover. He or she will recover. If it's not, then they won't recover. Okay, so this is very, very important to understand. And my point is, if you on purpose try to reach that point of blackout, what will happen in the next trainings is, as soon as you reach or close enough to hypoxia, then the body will immediately switch off to blacking out, because he knows that he needs to do something. So it's
Hmm.
obviously not something we want to
Trigger.
to trigger, right? So no, there's absolutely no benefit in reaching blackouts.
Okay. Beside deep diving, are there other benefits that you feel from having a high CO2 tolerance?
Other benefits.
Yeah, outside the free diving.
Mm. This is very interesting because this is a discussion that has been raised ultimately by some free divers and how those trainings could benefit other sports. So it has to be studied maybe a bit better or more,
More, yeah.
because there are a few studies about it. But what we athletes can notice is probably a benefit on a, I would say, cardiovascular level, and probably I would say probably for endurance too, because we are already very used to these very high levels of CO2, very, very uncomfortable. It's obviously a different state and different mechanism, but the benefits are there. I can tell you, and it certainly needs to be studied and proven maybe by science. But I'm sure, I'm positive, it helps in many ways for other sports too.
Interesting. Is it true that one way to improve CO2 tolerance is by increasing blood volume? Therefore, like resistance training can be a very useful way for that. Because usually when you resistance train, like you have more blood flow, more blood circulation.
Hmm, interesting. Well, I would say, I mean, from my perspective, from what I know, increasing the blood volume will help you have a better hypoxic outfit, because you will simply increase the amount of hematocrit also, so red blood cells count. And this immediately translates in a better oxygenation and being able to carry more oxygen throughout your body. Regarding as for CO2, I'm unaware. I mean, I'm not sure about the relationship between the blood volume and the amount of CO2. This is something that would be interesting to study. Also, I'm unaware of it, but maybe if you think so, that would be very, very interesting.
Yeah, I read something about that, so I wanted to like discuss it with you, but I think it is something that needs to be researched more, because
Yeah.
it makes sense to me, more, like more blood volume, more oxygen. So that's why I wanted to ask you. Well, do you work out, like resistance training?
I work out a lot. I do a lot of different kinds of workouts in the gym. I used to do some CrossFit and some like classical gym training and workout in the past. Now I do more some kind of workout more related to mobility and movement, and involving a lot of range of movement and range of strength kind of exercises.
Right.
So basically mixing stretching and strength at the same time. I try to avoid separating the two things, and that's basically it. I mean, I focus more on that, and sometimes during the start of the season, I might do some um, like cardiovascular training, like running, or
Right.
but very, very little.
How does that help you in free diving, the resistance training?
Well, I think that's first of all, we need a lot of strength for once we reach some certain level in freediving, because the way up without breathing is very demanding and physically extremely hard, and you need to work a lot on your strength and resistance in order to be able to make it back to the surface. Actually, this has been my limiting factor, my barrier for a long time, for years. And this is something I work on a lot, because basically for me, going down deep down there and reaching the bottom is not a problem, is not an issue, because I solved all problems related to equalization of the ears and depth adaptation and lungs adaptation to depth. But then the way back up, once you reach a certain depth, is very long. You're not breathing. You're accumulating a lot of CO2 because you're not expelling, you're not exhaling. So it's very taxing on the body. So yeah, strength and resistance, I would say, are very important.
Is it like something you do every other day, or?
Yeah, almost every day. I try to, take a day off maybe once or twice a week. But yeah, gym training at least is something I can do almost every day, and I enjoy it also. So yeah, I try to do it as much as I can.
Is there a specific shape that you want to achieve? Because I believe, in my opinion, like if someone has a high body fat percentage or too muscular, maybe can be a problem.
Okay, this is something else that has been also discussed a lot, and there's also a lot of controversy. I mean, a lot of different opinions. In the early days, I don't know if you heard about Jacques Mayol, the precursor of the sport. In the old days, Jacques Mayol has been the first man to achieve 100 meters, and that movie, the Big Blue, is about him, about the story
Okay.
of this person, of this freediver, and he has been a legend of freediving. Anyways, so he had this very famous sentence he would tell to his disciples and students. He would say, "Forget your muscles," referring to mental strength and mental training, ancient yoga, pranayama techniques and poses, relaxation, and all that stuff. Because he brought all these techniques from Asia to Occident, to the Western world, and he started preaching and teaching all those relaxation techniques and breathing and so on. And then he insisted a lot on those mental techniques rather than physical techniques, rather than strength. Sorry. So and this has been the conduct, the thing that everybody was following for years.
Okay.
That sentence, forget about your muscles and focus more on mental training, where that was right at the beginning of the sport, and maybe at that moment the physical aspect wasn't very important. But nowadays we're reaching those depths, those extreme depths, where the physique is extremely important. And as I told you before, it can be a limiting factor.
Yeah, the sport evolved.
It evolved a lot. So and a lot of people still think that way, that okay, I don't want to go to the gym, and a lot of freedivers still think that way. I don't want to hit the gym because I will be too bulky and too big, and I would consume a lot of oxygen because I don't want to be like Schwarzenegger. And that's completely wrong.
As if it's easy to become like
that's
him.
right. That's the first thing I would always tell them. People think they will hit the gym for 2 months and become like Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, by chance.
And that's not the. I mean, you barely maybe gain 1 kilo maybe of muscle, and I know by experience that's very, very, very hard, because this is something I struggle with, and this is my main objective when I do my base training at the beginning of the season. Like right now, I try to put as much weight, muscle weight, as possible. And for me, it's this is maybe something personal. Okay, it's related to my body and my physiognomy and my metabolism. That's very, very fast.
And your philosophy as well.
Yeah, right. Because once I go to the ocean, and we usually also travel to remote locations to train depth. As I said before, the metabolic stress you get from diving deep is so taxing on the body that you will automatically lose a lot of muscle and weight, and you will end up being too skinny. And
that makes sense.
And that's a big problem. So this is very hard. This is the hardest thing of the sport. You know that in every sport we go, we increase our strength and capacity until reaching a peak point, and we try to compete at that moment or do our record or whatever at that moment, and then we start decreasing again. So this is the hardest thing about the sport, and it's impossible to maintain the peak for long enough because you start losing weight, as I said, etc., and so on. So yeah, for me, it's very important to gain muscle and get strong enough. You could see, and nowadays, world champions are very different than what they used to be before. You could see that
in all disciplines, to be honest.
Yeah, in all
this
disciplines.
mentality was even in the past, in different disciplines, people thought the same way.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
I know you like to eat. So just like out of curiosity, what is your body fat percentage?
Well, I haven't measured it recently because I've been doing my depth training for the last months now. But last time it was around between 9 and 11%, probably. Yeah, maybe. Well, I don't know right now because I lost a lot of weight too after the world record. But yeah, it's usually quite low, and I actually try sometimes to increase it a little bit because it helps me to, for the cold water sometimes, and
interesting.
Maybe that's, yeah.
Is your diet today the same as when you were living in Tunisia?
No, it's quite different. Well, I try different. I mean, diet is a very extensive subject, and there are so many different kind of diets and opinions and stuff. So even in the freediving world, there's no clear consensus about it, and every freediver have their own style and their own diet. There's a lot of vegetarians, of course, and vegans. I'm not. I wouldn't be able to. I mean, I tried to, but and I like veggies a lot, but I think I do need my steak and the meat. I also tried other kinds of diets. I liked the keto diet and was on the keto diet for some time, or paleo also, and even carnivore diet. But then I think I created my own diet that probably suits me better.
Right.
I took some stuff from the keto diet that I liked a lot, because I think what I learned from the keto diet basically is to try to diversify the source of energy your body uses.
Right.
And that's very important, especially in freediving, because I noticed that when I relied on 100% on carbs, I would have more chance to get lose my energy and be closer to a blackout because of not because of hypoxia, but due to low levels of energy.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I discovered that, and once I switched to more diet that is more based on fat as a fuel, then I immediately noticed the difference. And at least before the dive, I obviously avoid to take any kind of carbs at all. Maybe when I'm doing the base training, when I'm hitting the gym and trying to put some mass on, it's hard for me to avoid any kind of carbs. So I do take some carbs, but probably only rice and that's it. I don't do pasta anymore. Simple sugars, obviously not. I hate sugar. I don't take any kind of sugar. Even fruits, I take very little right now at the moment.
Like berries, citrus, and stuff like that.
Yeah, with a low glycemic
glycemic index.
Yeah, index.
Nice.
That's right. Yeah, and it worked better for me, I think. So I keep on using it. Again, as I told you, other fellow freedivers won't agree, and they probably have very, very different habits. But I think it's all about experimenting and knowing what is more convenient for you.
I think that's the best way you did it, is you tried many things and then you find out what works best for you, because we all have a different metabolism, different system,
Absolutely. I have a very fast metabolism and I tend to lose weight very, very quickly. So basically the only way for me to put more weight on is to hit the gym. Weights heavy, workouts, and obviously eating a lot of protein. But if I just stop working out and like during the lockdown, for instance, at the beginning, and stay at my place, then I would lose weight immediately, very quickly. Some people tell me I'm lucky, but actually it's also very annoying because you need those muscles, and especially when you perform at a competitive level, and then building again those muscles, you probably know it takes age and a lot of effort.
Yeah. Well, you're performing at a competitive level, but also it's a life or death situation, meaning like that's extreme you're going to. Speaking of that, like obviously people, when they think about 150 meters, that's deep. So was it something that frightened you before?
um, I wouldn't say I wouldn't use the word frightening, but
Mhm.
um, okay. When I was diving on constant weight, so with a fin and free immersion, I went to max 120 meters, and I thought at the beginning that variable weight, so going deeper on variable weight, would be an easy task because it's only about depth itself, and it's not as physical as constant weight and stuff. But once I started going to past 120 and 125 and 130, and they felt the huge pressure, the big narcosis, and all those its related effects, then I was a bit worried about not anything wrong happening to me, because I knew I was in good hands with the
Yeah.
safety team, and I knew, that I would do things very, very gradually, but just worried about
Something new.
maybe not, yeah, and maybe not reaching the goal, because the ultimate goal was to do more than 146. That was the previous world record, so that was the main objective. And I realized that it wasn't as easy as I thought, and that it will
When did you
take
start
some hard work.
realizing that? At what point?
I think first time I went to 130 meters, it felt really. First time I went to 130 meters, it felt really deep, extremely deep,
Mhm.
and the effects of the pressure, the narcosis, the feelings, and even the fatigue afterwards. Even though I didn't make any effort, but the fact of being compressed by the pressure,
Mhm.
uh, yeah, I felt it afterwards, and for quite a long time. Yeah.
Is there a routine you do before you dive deep, like mentally?
I used to do that a lot in the past, and freedivers usually have a long routine and a lot of different kinds of exercises, mental exercises like visualization,
Yeah.
neuro-linguistic
Yeah.
training,
NLP.
programmation, NLP, and so many others. Okay, so many others, deep meditation, Tai Chi, whatever. Well, it depends a lot on every freediver. Anyways, and I did all those especially when I started freediving, because I was new to the sport, and um, I was trying to control the stress, basically the stress factor. That's a very difficult thing to work on, because the big difference between this sport and others, even though it's classified as an extreme sport, the you don't want to be under the adrenaline rush you usually get with other sports, like for instance skydiving or base training, or
Right.
maybe even I think racing, like running or triathlon or swimming.
Yeah.
Basically, if you have that rush of that shot of
Adrenaline.
adrenaline, and that the mindset of, okay, you can do it, let's go for it and stuff, that's fine for these kind of sports. Not for freediving. Freediving is totally the opposite. So once you're on the rope and you're breathing and preparing for a dive, those minutes before the dive are crucial. You don't want to feel that adrenaline rush. You don't want to feel stressed out. You don't want to feel, I don't know how to say, like,
Stressed.
yeah, obviously stressed and nervous about the dive, and like, it's the total opposite. You want to
Hmm.
be like
Completely relaxed in a
as if you
controlled
were
way.
about to fall asleep.
Hmm.
That's exactly it. Like taking a nap.
So it's like a meditative state.
Exactly. And that's my point. After years of practicing all those dry techniques of mental preparation and all that stuff. I studied all of them. My real training and meditation was the dive itself. It became the dive itself.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to do anything else out of the water, because I thought, and I found out, it will stress me out a bit more. And the repetition, through repetition and the experience, I enjoyed more and more those dives. And the dive itself would be my mental training, and I like that a lot. So that's basically it.
You
But
made me feel
obviously,
like I want to try this.
it's really nice. It's really nice, and obviously, I encourage anybody to try it. It's not absolutely not dangerous or stressful. Or actually, when I dive deep down there, I never, even when I go to for a world record, I never feel that urge to breathe or that anxiety, to be holding. I don't feel I'm holding my breath. It's a
Mm-hmm.
total different uh,
Yeah.
state of the mind,
Mm-hmm.
where I completely relaxed, 100%. I'm part of the water. I'm part of the ocean. I'm completely one with the ocean. It's really an amazing sensation, feeling.
I love it. Uh, you know about Wim Hof, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So Wim Hof, he's on purpose like increases his adrenaline level because he
Right.
wants like to get the body in that level, and then to also control your stress. You cause it and you control it with the breathing. Like he does the breathing technique. I also do his breathing technique first thing in the morning, like where you inhale, exhale, and then you exhale completely, and then you hold your breath. I started with like 2 minutes, and right now like I'm in 5.5.
Very
So
well.
but
Wow.
when I get in the water, that 5.5 disappears and it becomes like a 3 minute, and this is
Mm.
just by laying like that. So why you think you can hold your breath longer, like right in bed, as compared to in the water?
Okay. Basically, it's all about relaxation. As I said before, it's relaxation, 100%. One other thing also that is very important here, as you mentioned, Wim Hof, is that his method is based on hyperventilation. Okay, so you
Yes.
have to breathe strong and fast for some minutes. You might even feel dizzy or
Mm-hmm.
tingling in the extremities and stuff. Okay, and this is fine. I mean, this is his methodology and technique, and it has surely its benefits, and I know it's backed up by some scientific reviews and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But for the sport of freediving, this is not something you want to experience, especially before a dive. This is actually very dangerous, because if you hyperventilate, what you're going to do is you're not going to rise your levels of oxygen but what you're going to do is that you will lower the level of CO2 in the body. And as we said before, this is not something uh, actually good, because we need the CO2 in our body so that we can teach our body. It's obviously
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable. It's also obviously not nice at the beginning
Right.
once you hold your breath with all that CO2 in the body. But if you do that several times, the body will eventually adapt, and it will become much safer. Because if you suppress, if you lower your CO2 by hyperventilating, then and you hold your breath, this is very dangerous, because the oxygen will obviously go lower and lower, and at some point you will be you will go to hypoxia without even feeling it, because there is no CO2. There's no enough CO2 in the body. So basically, what can happen is a blackout without any notice. Okay,
Right.
and if you are on your bed, lying in your bed, okay, that's probably fine and nothing bad will happen. But if you're in the water, this is extremely dangerous and very serious, because if you have a blackout once you're in the water and you are on your own, well, that's basically death. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is something maybe we should tell people. So
Mm-hmm.
avoid hyperventilating before holding your breath, especially in the water. And as for the method itself, um, well, we obviously use something different. Rather than hyperventilation, we use the exact opposite. Actually, it's called hypoventilation. It's
Mm.
a very, very kind of a relaxed kind of breathing, very, very slow, very gentle. Because our body knows how to oxygenate itself.
Right.
Even if we were right now when we are speaking and we are having a very normal tidal kind of breathing, then our saturation, our O2 saturation right now is 100%. You can measure it with a high oximeter, sorry, and you will see it's totally fine. Okay, we don't need to hyperventilate. I understand the point behind it, and to be able to handle the cold water and the breath hold itself and stuff.
Yeah.
But in my methodology, I think I actually I'm experiencing also with cold water and all that stuff. I think it has a lot of benefits, but I prefer to do it in the complete opposite way. So being completely relaxed and hypoventilating, so breathing very, very gently, and entering the water, the cold water in that state, I think gives you more advantage because you can feel all that vasoconstriction in your extremities. It involves a lot of adaptations in the body that might be, I think, very useful for us.
Okay.
For us free divers and for anybody, I think.
So, you made me think about something. Like if we create an online course where you give us guidance on these things, because I'm really interested in this way of breathing, since you said it helps everyone, especially like resistance training and daily challenges, Is it something that can be guided and can be achieved in different levels?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can structure it in organized way, so we can have different levels. And yeah, absolutely. We could, start by the basics that are basically teaching the person how to breathe correctly. This is the basics and something very important. And then go through other kind of more advanced techniques, especially the ones related also to working on the strength and flexibility of breathing muscles, because this is something extremely important and no other sports focus on, but freediving, because in freediving we need to have efficient breathing, of course, because we need to hold our breath longer, and the only way to achieve this is through working on the flexibility of those breathing muscles. So a flexible diaphragm, flexible intercostals, and obviously the strength also, because a lot of people have bad breathing habits simply because their breathing muscles are not strong enough. It's like any other muscle in the body. Like, when you go to the gym and you work out your muscles, your biceps and stuff, well, you should do the same also for diaphragm and intercostal muscles. And this is not done by anybody, as far as I know. And those techniques we use for freediving, I'm pretty sure that it can be very, very helpful for other sports.
Wow, this is very interesting. I love this stuff and looking forward to do something about this, for sure.
Me too.
I want to ask you, the David Blaine, the magician, he has he does something inside the, what do you call it, the aquarium?
Yep.
And he flips himself upside down.
Yep.
And the reason he said he's able to hold his breath longer like that, in that position. And that's almost similar when you dive with your head down, like in the beginning. So why is that easier to hold your breath in that position?
That's interesting. I didn't know about that part of David Blaine. I heard about his record, obviously, and I knew he trained with a fellow freediver instructor to master those techniques and be able to reach his goal. The thing about being upside down is interesting. I frankly didn't know about this, about the position helping to hold your breath longer. Maybe the effect of gravity makes the irrigation to the brain easier. Maybe there's how to say, longer, a bit more tolerance for reaching the point of blacking out. But this is something I'm just probably inventing.
What he was saying, his explanation was, since you're breathing, the air is easier to come out, okay? But if you flip yourself upside down, it stays more in your body because it's always gonna reach out.
I don't agree with that because Actually, air it has its own. It has its own weight. We tend to think that the air wants to go up for some reason, but
I mean, that's what happens when you breathe in the water. The air goes up, right?
Well, bubbles.
Yeah.
Yeah. But inside of the body, things are different because you're isolating the body. It's like a submarine. You're isolating it from the exterior, so it's not the bubble anymore. It's a complex physics here, but inside of the body, the air has some a weight actually, and I would say the opposite. It actually goes down because it has its own weight inside of the body. So I don't know. I'm not really agree with that. I would need
But why you think he chose that position for his record?
I would say the only explanation I have would be, the gravity would have probably the blood to go to the brain more efficiently, and maybe there's it's easier to stay conscious longer without risking the point of blacking out. Maybe there's an easier oxygenation of the brain. Sorry, but again, I haven't read about it, so I'm just improvising here. I would have to check this.
Perfect. Well, look, thank you very much, Walid, for the conversation. It was really informative. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm sure our viewers enjoyed it a lot. Where can people follow your achievements?
Well, simply either on Instagram, Walid Boudihaf, or on Facebook, Walid Boudihaf, the Freediver. I would be happy to answer any question and share. I try to share as much information as possible when time allows, and I hope people will find useful information there. And let me know also if you need to, video anything on any kind of particular subject. I'd be happy to share it.
For sure. Yeah.
Thank you very much too for the invitation and for everybody to
My pleasure.
listening. Pleasure. It has been a nice time talking about this subject.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward for something that we can create together, because I myself can benefit from it, and I will do this because I know breathing will help everyone in anything they do. Like, it's like money. You cannot make money from something and you only spend it in that thing. It can go anywhere. Same thing for oxygen and breathing.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. Good comparison.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Walid, and I will see you soon.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you, Moy. See you soon. Take care.